Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Whey of Life. I'm your host, Gus Holland. Today we're going to be covering how to grow your forearms. A lot of guys specifically have been requesting forearm exercises and tips and tricks on how to grow them, how often to train them, etc. So we're going to cover that. So obviously, first and foremost, I'm going to be covering the very basics: nutrition, rest and recovery, and consistency. These are all essential things for any form of training, whether it's cardio, specifically respiration training, or muscular endurance, muscular growth, you name it. Having a balanced diet, meaning balanced for your specific goals, is essential. Basically, you're going to be, obviously you're going to have a higher protein diet than an average person that is just training for standard health and longevity. If you're trying to build muscle, you're going to need more protein. You're also probably going to need some more rest and recovery. But in general, consuming a balanced diet with enough protein to support your muscle growth and ensuring that you're getting enough overall calories to fuel your workouts and your recovery is essential. So, besides nutrition, obviously I touched on rest and recovery. Adequate rest is going to be crucial for your muscular growth, especially, even for your day-to-day brain activity, like outside of the gym. You're going to need more rest, and you're going to need to ensure that you get enough sleep each night to allow your muscles to grow, but also to recover between the workouts. So you're with the amount of sleep you're getting, you're not just worried about your muscles growing, but you're also worried about anything else suffering as a consequence of not getting enough sleep. So, lastly, there's consistency. Obviously, you're going to want to incorporate some forearm training into your routine, and you're going to want to keep it consistent, at least for a good while until you see some gains. Normally, what I say, this goes for calves as well. Forearms and calves are kind of similar as far as their level of fatigue they can withstand, the amount of training that they need, the amount of volume, etc. So I take that back. Volume is going to be much more on calves because you're constantly walking on them and technically working them throughout the day. Just in day-to-day life, you are with forearms, but much less so than calves. But anyways, either one, calves and forearms, you're going to want to train 2 to 3 times per week with enough volume specifically for you to stimulate growth. And then on top of that, you're really going to want to have enough rest in between each session. So I wouldn't necessarily say train forearms 3 days in a row. You can do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or however you want to split it up and incorporate it into your routine. Normally, I like to things that are, I guess, things that I'm working on specifically. Like if I'm saying, oh, my calves are really lacking, or my abs, or my forearms, those kind of, for me at least, all fall into a similar category of wanting to hit them more often with enough volume to stimulate the growth, while also maintaining enough adequate rest in between training sessions. So I like to personally incorporate them either in the beginning or the end of my exercise, kind of just as a bonus. Sometimes both. Like I might warm up with some calves and then do my whole whatever it is, back and bicep day. I'm just throwing something out there, and then end with calves. It's a good way to kind of change stuff up and whatever. I personally like doing calves and forearms, and I know some people don't like it, but I like it. So it's kind of fun to throw in there. But this kind of falls into the whole rest and recovery thing, because rest and recovery affects your mental state, basically, for just to sum it up. So you're really going to want to focus on form. This is because you really, really do not want to injure your forearm, because that is going to hinder any other arm exercises, maybe your grip strength, like who knows. But the form is what's going to let you effectively target each individual part of your forearm. There's multiple different parts. I'm not going to go over the scientific aspect of it or the scientific names of each part today. We're just going to cover the basics and the need to know type of stuff right now. You're going to really want, in my opinion, to focus on the isolation of your forearm and not overdoing the weight. In my opinion, I've seen significant growth in my forearms over the years just from doing the exercises I'm about to list with 15 to 20 pound dumbbells. I mean, I actually, when I first started, it was more like 10 to 15 pound dumbbells. You don't need a whole bunch of weight if you're properly isolating your forearms and you're just focused on the growth, at least at this moment. So as far as the exercises go, there are, you can I'll explain these after I list them, but you can also Google them for a visual representation and everything. But there are wrist curls, reverse wrist curls, hammer curls, and then different types of grip strength exercises. So those are like farmer's walks, where you're holding a lot of weight and you're really having to, hold it for a long time. These are Denny stones, plate pinches, and then different types of grip squeezes. Excuse me. There are all types of different grip tools that you can go down a real deep rabbit hole as far as that goes. Hammer curls, that kind of goes against the whole isolation of the forearm thing, but that's going to really hit your brachialis, and that is what kind of ties into your forearm, and so it is essential. You're going to want to hold the dumbbells with your neutral grip, which means your palms facing each other. I like to do this standing up and isolating or pinning my elbow to my sides, basically. And you're curling the weight up toward your shoulder while keeping your palms facing each other. And I guess your knuckles facing outward. Thumbs, I guess, yeah, if you were looking down, your thumbs would be on top of your hands. So, besides that, reverse wrist curls. So those are similar to regular wrist curls, but your palms will be facing down. You're isolating your forearm to specifically just try and move your wrist and flex the muscles within your forearm. Wrist curls, you can use your barbell or dumbbells. You can sit on a bench with your forearms resting on your thighs and your palms facing up. Then you curl the weight up by flexing your wrist and slowly lowering it back down. I personally just, especially if it's like a heavier, like 15 or 20 pounder or whatever, I'll actually kneel next to a flat bench as long as it's not hindering anyone else's ability to exercise, or, if there's a bunch of people doing bench, I won't do this, but, I will kind of put my arm with palm facing upward across the bench, with my elbow on the bench, my wrist hanging off the edge of the bench, which really, and then I'll lightly put my other hand, like say I'm doing this with my right arm at the time, I'll use my left hand to hold down lightly my forearm. So because my wrist is hanging over, it's forcing me to isolate and just curl. Basically, you're curling the weight with just your wrist movement. And I will go all the way up to as far as I can and really flexing and squeezing, and then slowly lower it down. And I try to also do a slight negative in that motion. You're going to really feel this. I like to do, if it's lighter weight, I like to do 3 sets of 10 or so. If it's heavier weight, I kind of like to do like 4 sets of 6 or 4 sets of 8, really. So as far as what I was just explaining with the wrist curl and your palm facing upward, you can hit it like that, and then you can literally turn your forearm and your hand, 90 degrees, so it's facing upward, and you can curl upward while just isolating. We're only moving your wrist, and you can rotate your arm another 90 degrees with your palm facing down. That's that reverse wrist curl. And you're really going to be hitting it hard. It does not take a lot to really get your forearms worked out. And yeah, so like I said, you're going to want to stick to consistency. This means incorporating this. I like to actually write my workout plans out. I mean, some people are like, no, I know what I'm doing and I just do it every day. But writing it down really it's going to let you keep track of the sets and reps you actually did, not just what you thought you did or whatever. But it's also going to let you go back in like 2 weeks time or whatever, and with any exercise, and have a reference point of the weight you're using. And even if you jot down how you're feeling with that weight, like you could be like, well, like if you're starting out bench, you're like, well, I hit 135 on bench and I'm really proud of that. And, but it was a struggle. It was like, I mean, my spotter almost had to help me. It was, I was really fighting, and then 2 or 3 weeks down the road, you're like, oh, well, I hit 140, but it went pretty smooth, and it's a really cool way to see your growth over time, especially in times when you start feeling down with your training, because at some point normally that happens for people, especially when following a program, the monotony, and you're like feeling like you're not making a whole lot of progress, but you actually are. That's kind of my rant as far as that goes. You want to focus on progressive overload, which is gradually increasing your weight that you're lifting over time to constantly challenge your muscles and stimulate that growth. So, like I said, if you start doing these, that's why you write this stuff down. If you start doing these exercises with 10s and you're like, man, this is really a struggle. I was burnt out. Like my hands were trembling when I was done, and I felt super weak. I mean, it was a good workout, but then later on, you're like, okay, well, it's been however long, 2 weeks, a month, however long it takes you. You're like, man, I feel like I can do 15 pounders now. And you go up to 15 pounders and you start doing that. So that's that progressive overload to continually challenge yourself. So that's about it as far as forearm exercises go. Another fun thing that I left out is a lot of baseball players do this, and I think wrestlers too. I'm not super familiar, but they'll get like a 5-gallon bucket from Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever hardware store you have, and fill it up with rice, and just the cheapest rice you can find or whatever. Some people do with sand too, but I don't know. I like rice. I like to do it with rice. And you kind of just like, you force your hand down into the rice and you just kind of move it around. It's, it's kind of like that isolating the wrist thing. You can have some like, elbow flaring in there or whatever, it doesn't really matter, but you're basically, the rice is adding resistance to the movement of your hand within the rice, which is going to work your forearms. So some people do kind of like a twisting motion with their hands, or kind of like a snaky motion through there, or different swirls, like trying to move the entire mass of rice, like you're stirring it without any water in it. All of those are good exercises. You can do those forwards and backwards and all kinds of stuff. So that's a very cheap way, especially if you don't have especially if you don't have a lot of access to workout equipment, or different types of grip strength tools. Well, thank y'all so much for listening. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. That is the number one way to help the podcast. And it's greatly, greatly appreciated. The other way is to leave a rating and review. Like usual, I'm going to be putting the website's information down in the description, as well as some other links you might find useful. And yeah, I will be talking to y'all next week, and thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great rest of your week. All right, bye.